everyone. Welcome. My name is Kristen Sorek West, and I am the Director of Marketing here at Yale School of Management Executive Education. We hope that you are doing well, and we appreciate you taking the time to join us this afternoon or this evening or this morning, wherever you happen to be. This is the Introduction to Yale's CPWA Prep Course, Wealth Management Theory and Practice. This is one of 2 online financial certification programs we offer. It's modeled after our successful CIMA online program, Investment Management Theory and Practice. Our program director, Jim Dobbs, who you'll meet in a moment, was instrumental in creating both programs, and he knows them inside and out. Please engage with us during the webinar. Don't hesitate to ask questions. Jim is very knowledgeable, and this is your time. This is your opportunity to get your questions answered, to pick his brain. We may hold questions until the end, but we will do our best to answer all of them. To ask questions, please use the Q&A button at the bottom of your screen. You can submit your question to everyone or just to me. I suggest that you send it to everyone, as they may have a similar question in mind. Please use the Q&A function for questions directed towards me and Jim, and the chat for any technical questions. Now to introduce Jim Dobbs. Jim is CPWA certified. He is also CFP and CIMA certified. He was a financial advisor for 25 years and ran his own RIA practice before retiring from it to work full-time in his financial education company. Jim has worked with different certifying bodies and universities for the last 20 years, helping build and manage financial certification programs. More importantly, though, Jim has had extensive experience with the Investments and Wealth Institute. He personally helped create the CPWA certification and has served IWI in many roles, including as chair of IWI's Technical Advisory Board. Jim directed and taught in the classroom version of the CPWA course for many years, and has now partnered with us to bring his expertise and enthusiasm to Yale, and in turn to you. You'll see he's a passionate guy, and he's committed to success, and he measures his success based on yours. Without further ado, please welcome Jim Dobbs. Hey, Jim.
Well, thank you very much. Can you see and hear me okay?
I sure can.
Wonderful. Welcome, everybody. Yeah, let's have some fun. Ask all those questions. Absolutely. We'll tackle some of them along the way, and then I'll certainly be happy to stay even if we go past the hour to get all those questions answered. Just a heads up on that. Some of you might have specific questions regarding your individual situation, like where you are in your career, your job path, that kind of thing. And like, is this the best fit for you versus some of the others? Feel free to ask if it's kind of a generic type of question in that regard. Otherwise, you'll get my contact information. You can just email me. I'd be happy to have a quick call with you, because some of your situations are really interesting and unique. And it might take at least a few minutes to work through. I think I'd rather do that with you over the phone, but that's my offer to you. Yeah, it's going to take about an hour, but it depends on the number of questions you guys have. But this is your chance to ask anything and everything. There are no silly questions, literally, at this point. So fire away. All right, just a point of clarification. We are different from IWI, Investments and Wealth Institute. They are your certifying body. We at Yale, as you can imagine, we provide education, and in this case, we provide a registered education course approved by IWI and test prep to get you ready for the certification exam. So we're going to help you through that part of the process. But as it pertains to applying for candidacy and earning the certification itself by taking the certification exam and then your ongoing CE and dues and that kind of thing, that's all IWI, because they are your certifying body. If you haven't been to their website, I'd highly recommend you spend 15-20 minutes just getting familiar with your certifying body. This is one of the cool charts. I don't even think they have this on their website, but it's one that I saw not too long ago, which just kind of in a nutshell explains who IWI is. I like them because they're deep on the technical side. That's why I got involved about 20 years ago with IWI, 17 years ago, maybe, I think. And their certifications, CIMA and CPWA, RMA is new. That's a retirement certification. We don't offer that one yet. We'll see how things go, whether we want to offer that. But SEMA and CPWA have been around for a while, and they're both accredited at the highest level for professional certifications. And there are only about 5 in the United States that are financial services related that are. So that was very important to me, very important to Yale, as we decided that we wanted to offer these two. So those are their 2 big certifications, SEMA, CPWA. All right, if you haven't been on their website, if you have recently, you've probably seen this. They are still offering scholarships, and they're pretty big, I would say, 1,000 to 5,000 each. And typically what I've seen is if you can check like more than one of the boxes there over on your left, you may get more than 1,000. So it may be 1,000 for this one, 500 for that, another 1,000 for this, etc. But I think if I'm you, it's worth 10 or 15 minutes to go to their website and with no obligation, fill out their little scholarship application and see what happens. I mean, again, it really can't hurt you other than giving up 10 or 15 minutes of your life. So I think it's worth it when the stakes are at least $1,000 if you're qualified for one of these scholarships. And procedural note, you'll want to do that. It's not mandatory, but you'll want to do that if you can before you apply for certification for candidacy. That way you'll have your scholarship if they give you one, and you can apply that right away on your candidacy application and initial fee. So do this first if you haven't, see what happens. This one can take at least a week. I'll talk about the certification and candidacy process in a minute. This one takes longer than the application, actually. So if you have any interest, just go ahead and do that. In fact, some of you, I can probably envision you're doing it right now while I'm jabbering on. So that's pretty cool. Okay, so let's talk about the designation market, if you will, just to make sure you're in the right place. I'll talk about content in just a little bit as well. Kristen mentioned we have a sister program or a brother program, SEMA, Certified Investment Management Analyst, for those of you who need to take the deeper dive in investments. Very popular with a lot of firms requiring actually advisors to get that. Now, CPWA is wealth management. Think of it as an extension of financial planning. You could call it loosely financial planning for those who work with high net worths. I'm a CFP designee myself. I would imagine many of you on this call are as well. CFP, as you can see there highlighted, certainly takes longer. That's not because it's more difficult in my mind. It's just because there's a lot more content to get through. There's a lot more they test over, and there's a longer testing process as well. So about 1.5 years on average, more or less, for CFP. I do recommend if you're brand new to this industry, all you've done is your licensing, your required by law testing so that you can even be legal in our business, but you're ready to move up and show your clients and prospects an additional commitment. I think CFP is a wonderful thing to go for. Now, if you're only doing investments, SEMA may be that first step in that regard. But if you're doing not just investments, but all kinds of financial planning and services, I think CFP is a nice foundation for you. That doesn't mean you have to have one to come into our program, our CPWA program here at Yale. I think it certainly will help you. CPWA is definitely more advanced. CFP is not advanced, I would say, in terms of the curriculum itself, but it's not all introductory or elementary either. I'd say there's a really good mix between intermediate down to foundational in CFP, but that could be a good fit for some of you to do before you move into CPWA. I'll give you an example of that. In CFP land, in most of the programming that you would have access to, and there are literally hundreds of them, in most of those courses on the estate planning side, you're going to learn a little bit about trusts, what they are, what the function is, a little of the legality, maybe even a little of the taxes. Excuse me. But in CPWA land, I think we study about 23 different types of trusts, in and out, all the nitty-gritty details of those, from legal to tax to asset protection to transferring, think intergenerational wealth. So that's kind of a good example, I think, of the difference between CPWA and CFP. Again, doesn't mean you have to have it. It just would help if you had something, a foundation like that before you came into CPWA. And then I've got CFA all the way on the right-hand side. I've got it in black, not because that's a bad thing. In my mind, it's the hardest one to get, takes the longest. 4 years for those who get it, less than 10% of people who start complete the task. And of those who earn their charter, most of those individuals fail at least one of the 3 levels at least one time. So that's why it takes longer. Now, there is a ton of material in CFA. It's a deep dive, especially on the quantitative side. That all being said, if your goal is to become a securities analyst, an institutional money manager, think like, I want to manage a mutual fund at Vanguard or Nuveen or PIMCO or wherever, then I think CFA is your route. You're going to need those skills to be successful anyway, so you might as well go ahead and earn that charter and gain some respect out there in the industry as well. So that's probably not very many of you. It may be none of you on this call, but if that's your route, then yeah, even though it's much longer, much more time intensive, and there's only an X% chance that you're going to make it, I think that's still the route for you. So if you have any questions about your specific situation and which of these or a couple of others that I think are high end would make sense, yeah, you just shoot me an email. I'll be happy to set up a call with you. All right, so let's talk about the prereqs for CPWA certification according to IWI. It's not according to Yale. This is according to IWI, your certifying body. So you've got to have a bachelor's degree from an accredited university, or if you don't have one, they will accept any one of these, what is it, 6 designations or certifications. Now, CPA is actually a license, and I think you have to have a degree to get that. So I don't know why that's in there. But anyway, if you've got one of these and you don't have a bachelor's degree, then you can go ahead and move forward. You would just fill that out on your CPWA candidacy application. We'll talk about that in a little bit. Got to pass a background check, which is good. I think any legitimate organization needs to make sure they're checking for black marks on a background. Look, as for what we do with people, their money, their personal finances, their investments, their financial future, we've got to do a better job of making sure we keep bad actors out of our business. It makes us all look bad, but worse, it totally ruins some people's lives. So very happy that they do this. And I think any legitimate certifying body has to do this. Otherwise, I don't know how legitimate they are, in my mind anyway. And then 5 years of experience in the financial field. Doesn't have to be as a financial planner or wealth manager, whatever that is. But it does need to be in the financial services field. That being said, you can begin this process before you've hit the 5 years. Apply for candidacy, get accepted, go through our education, take and pass the cert exam, sign your licensing paperwork, but you just can't use the mark until you hit that last hurdle, which is your 5-year mark. So again, the point is you can go through the whole process. You just wouldn't be able to use the marks as certified until you hit the five years. But again, that's one of those that, like, if you don't have 5 years in the business, CPWA might not be the best fit. Every once in a while, I run into somebody who doesn't have one of these other certifications. They're 3 years in, 4 years into the business, but they are exclusively dealing with high net worth clients and the specialty issues, think tax, investments, estate planning. That's all they do every day. So in that situation, I think CPWA can be the right move for them. Noted that they're going to have to play some catch up in some of the more fundamental areas along the way, because we're assuming you've already got a pretty decent foundation coming in the door and you're ready to go to the advanced content in our program. All right, here is the process. It's a pretty easy process. I've mentioned it a couple of times. You're going to apply for candidacy through IWI. Then once you get accepted, and that takes about a week. So it takes about a week for them to process your application. I think they say 2 weeks or something on their website, but it's usually just a few days to a week. Then they're going to tell us, hey, Jim, Kristen's been accepted as a CPWA candidate. And it takes us about a week, give or take, to get you set up online in the Yale program through Canvas, which is the online provider we use, the LMS, the learning management system. So about a week at IWI for the application, about a week for us to get you set up, and then your you're off and running. So you complete our program. I'll walk you through that in just a minute, and then get ready for and take and pass your certification exam. And then you get the congratulations from IWI and a bunch of paperwork, and they run another background check. And then once you get through that last task, if you will, then you're certified and able to use the marks. Okay, so pretty simple and straightforward in that regard. All right, let's talk about the content for those of you who are not quite sure yet. You're leaning towards this program, this certification, but you're like, there are other choices out there, and I'm not sure if this is the best fit for me yet or not. By the way, I'm just going to hit the highlights here. There is a 4 or 5 page color-coded PDF with the line-by-line topics. There are over 500 topics, by the way. And it's also got the exam weightings. If you want a copy, you can go to IWI's website or Yale program website, which you've probably already been to, or just email me and I'll shoot you a copy tonight or tomorrow. And so you'll have that. I think that's important because if you're just not sure, you're like, okay, Yale's certainly credible and elite. IWI, I think I've heard of them before, and I think they're legit. You still want to make sure the content is a match, because you're going to be studying this material for months. We'll talk about timing in a minute. But, you really want to make sure, if for no other reason, opportunity cost, you want to make sure this is on the money for you. This is going to help you build your practice, help you serve your clients better, help you attract more and better clients. So I think you want to go through that line by line PDF that I mentioned, spend 10, 20 minutes on it, and then just keep asking yourself as you read that line by line, is this going to help me in my practice now or get me where I want to go? And just keep asking that question. By the time you finish all those line items, you should have a pretty good gut feel. Your intuition ought to be saying, absolutely, this looks mostly on target, or well, I think maybe half of it was relevant. Well, then I would say no, unless your boss is making you do this. I would say no, because there are other things you can do with all the choices you've got in life right now, including outside of your career, that may not be worth your time. Speaking of content, I do want to mention, this is a pretty tax-heavy curriculum and test. That being said, it's US-based. So if you just happen to be, I'll keep an eye here and we'll see if we get him a drop. If you're outside of the US or the clients you serve are not subject to US tax code, then this is not the program for you. You're going to spend dozens, maybe even 100 or 200 hours studying tax code, not like right out of the code, but tax challenges. What are the regs? Who does this apply to? What are the strategies to work with that? And what should I be presenting to my client or working with their CPA on? So if your clients aren't subject to US tax code, I don't want to call that a waste of time, because you'll get more knowledgeable, but I want you to get more knowledgeable in something you can use. So if you fall into that boat, this is most likely not the right program for you. But again, reach out to me if you kind of want to give me more details and kind of flesh that out a little bit more. Okay, so on the kind of the big honeycombs they have here, the big domains, as they call them, I would call them parts or sections, but part one is human dynamics. So we're going to start with the human element. Ethics, obviously, very, very important. Then we're going to get into behavioral finance. And I think this is really important. And I think we all know this now. When I got into the business 30 years ago, that was just a very, very new field. But what I certainly learned through my years, and I would imagine every single one of you has too, if you have any experience in the business, is you can be really technically strong, know all these strategies, the ins and outs, positives, negatives, risks, rewards, etc. But if you can't manage your own behavior and thoughts and can't help your clients do the same, you're not going to have clients for very long. I can't even count how many missteps I made in my first 10 years because I just didn't have a handle on that. One, there was no education really for that back in the day. Two, just kind of had to learn by, trial, learn by fire, if you will. And, you lose so many clients, it gets painful enough, you start learning those lessons. So we're going to spend a fair amount of time on behavioral economics, finance, financial psychology, if you want to think about it that way. And then we certainly need to get into family dynamics of working with your wealthy families. So, you may have taken on the matriarch or patriarch first as the initial client. their wealth grew from 2 to 5 to 10 to $20 million. Now you're dealing with second and even third generation. A lot of extra complexities, not just tax-wise, but psychologically in that regard as well. So we want to give you some information, some training to see some things that you're surely going to see, challenges, if you haven't already. That way, when it happens, or when you're starting to anticipate it's going to happen, you'll be like, oh, yeah, I'm so glad I saw that case study. I read about that client family in my CPWA studies at Yale, because that looks like that's exactly what's happening here with this client family. So I want to get you ahead of that. Now, the next one is wealth management strategies. That's more common sense, technical area that you would expect to be in a program like this. So think tax and tax planning. We don't expect you to be the tax practitioner, although some of you are probably CPAs looking at this course. We've had countless CPAs come through this as well, so that's fine. But most of you are not licensed to offer tax advice, nor does your firm allow it anyway. But we need you to know the issues, and we need you to know enough about the tax code to know what could and what could possibly not work for a particular client. That way, when you all go to see the CPA and do planning, you're not only there just sitting and listening and learning. We want you to be involved, especially with some CPAs. If you're like me, you raise your hand. How many CPAs have you run across with your clients over the years that, that would not be your choice of a CPA or a tax planning specialist for your clients? I can't even tell you how many times I ran into that. So we want to get you in a spot where you can help in those situations. Investment portfolio management, of course, we'll go through, not as intensive as SEMA. That's just investments. So it's certainly going to be lighter in portfolio management in this program, or at least less material. It's not really light. Risk management, asset protection kind of rounds out your core technical areas. Then we'll get into specialization, because a lot of your high net worth clients fall into these first two buckets. They either own their own business or businesses, or they're executives. And there are unique challenges and potential strategies for each of those types of clients. And they bear, they warrant enough attention for us to have whole sections on those. And then retirement. I guess they could have put retirement and wealth management strategies. I am kind of glad they differentiate it here in this little honeycomb. And the reason I say that is in CFP land or CHFC or other comparable programs you may have done, remember that was a lot about accumulation. Like you got to help your clients get to retirement, like build their finances to where they can feel confident they can eventually retire. Well, with this program and this curriculum, we're kind of assuming that your clients are either already there or they're surely going to get there. So it's not quite as much about accumulation, although there's a fair amount of that in this program. It's more about decumulation. How do you've got $20 million, $10 million, $8 million tied up in an IRA roller? How do you get that out in the most tax advantaged way, keeping in mind asset protection and other issues? And then when there's a second or third generation involved, especially then the taxes get a little more challenging. So anyway, that's really the focus there on retirement. And then as you can imagine, we wrap up with legacy planning. That's mostly, not all, but mostly charitable and estate planning. Okay, so again, shoot me an email if you want to copy that PDF. Happy to send that over to you so you can really look line by line at what this curriculum offers. All right, I'm going to leave most of this for you to go to IWI's website. I got this one off their website, and they've got some other cool little infograms or whatever you call these, and also research by third parties. Think Cerulli, IT Group is another. There's one more I always forget. And I think that's helpful for you just to know that this is, this is legit and quite possibly worth your while, but all from an industry standpoint. But also if your boss hasn't signed off on this yet, and or you think they might reimburse, but maybe there's no firm policy on that, there's some good information, some good third-party research showing the difference between CPWA designees and CFPs. Could be very helpful. And then like CPWAs make more money than CFPs, that's clear from the data. And then CFPs make more than those who don't. hold either one. So I think all of that can be helpful, but I'll kind of hit some of the highlights in at least 15 years now of working with CPWA candidates. Higher compensation, yeah, I think that's clear. You'll see that in the data. You can present that to your manager if you think that will help. Expert instruction, I'll show you the faculty in a minute. They're really quite fabulous. Differentiate yourself from competitors. Look, this is a really, really competitive field. Has been my whole 30 years, and it just seems to get more competitive. And so I think having a way to differentiate for your client, not just the knowledge, but showing them your dedication to additional learning and generating skills to help them. Here's my favorite, though, is confidence. So if you're dealing with high net worth, $5, $10, $20 million and up, you are, if you're not already, going to be working with their CPAs and their attorneys and other financial professionals. You won't be the only one, obviously. Hopefully the coach, the quarterback, whatever analogy you want to use, but you're going to be working with the others. And in some of those technical tax and estate planning areas, for example, you need to be really solid. You won't be making the decisions or even narrowing down the options necessarily, but you're going to be involved in that process. And you need to have confidence when you're sitting across from the attorney with your client. Don't think for a second your client's not looking at you when that whole conversation's going on. They are. They want to see how comfortable you are, how confident you are. And it's really fun. They had one just 2 weeks ago. I didn't get to make it in New York, but I love to go to the conferences because I get to talk to you guys in person. And I hear it every single time. Wow, one of the biggest things that I got out of the program was confidence. Now I can go in front of just about any estate planning attorney and feel like I know 90 to 100% of what they're going to recommend. And then when the client comes out of the meeting later and says, Jim, what just happened? He lost me at Gratz. Then you can go back through from your notes all the things he talked about and talk about the pros and the cons, the risks, the potential benefits, etc. So I think that's going to add a tremendous amount of value for you with your clients to be able to do that. As we all know, not all CPAs and attorneys do this, but many are guilty of using the jargon and the slang and just talking right over the clients. And some of us as advisors do that too. Certainly we need to not do that, but that does present an opportunity for you to step in and add some clarity for your clients. All right. I'm going to let you stare at these for a second, and I'm going to check in with Kristen and see if we've got any early questions.
Quiet group this afternoon. No early questions.
All right. We'll just forge ahead. And hey, look, when you're going for a designation or certification, I think it's important that you really kick the tires, do your due diligence. That's what you guys are doing on this Zoom session right now. And the reason I think that's important is if you're only going to spend 8 hours on this, whatever. But it does cost some money. And even more importantly, in my mind, it's going to take you hours, probably 100 to 200 hours of total study. We'll get to the estimates in a minute. So I think you want to know what the service provider, in this case, it's Yale, or providing you education and test prep to help you get over the last hurdle, that certification exam. You want to know what we're trying to help you do. And very specifically, now we've got about like 34 metrics or something that Kevin and crew track, but these are the big goals and objectives that when we look at the big framework, we want to make sure we're checking the box every single time we accumulate the data. We're going to certainly deliver the comprehensive coverage of all of those 500 topics. Some of them are going to be in the course section, some of them are going to be in test prep, and then some of them are in both. But we're going to get you coverage of all of those. The one in the middle, I think, is the most important, although it's definitely the hardest to manage or measure, is to help you develop skills, knowledge, tools, resources, all of that to help you with your job or your practice right now. And in fact, I just heard this morning from an advisor who just completed CPWA program and then passed his exam, just brought in a $7.5 million, I know it's not huge, but $7.5 million AUM case, because he was able to go in and present a little bit of tax, but especially estate planning strategies to the prospect And their CPA and attorney hadn't even brought those up, or at least not very much, not in any detail. So yeah, very practical. That's very important to us, those of us who actually literally built out the first curriculum 15 or 16 years ago, whatever it was. And then finally, it's to help you get over the certification exam. Like I was doing all of these certifications myself in practice back in the day. And I get it. As you spend more time with us and as you move towards your exam date, which we'll talk about in a minute, it's just more and more about the exam. You start out pretty altruistic and you're like, yeah, I'm going to bring all this into my practice and I'm taking copious notes and applying this to my current clients and all this stuff. But as you get into the last month or something, it's like, okay, I just got to pass this test. I mean, this is the last thing I got to do. And then I can come back and look at all this wonderful material later if it's going to help me in practice. So I get it. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to start out not broad per se, but we're going to start out in a way that's more practice oriented in the education and get you through that. And then once you get to test prep, then it's all about the exam and it's just details. This is what we think you'll see. This is what we don't think you'll probably see, et cetera, et cetera. I'll go into more of the test prep in a minute. All right. I think this probably goes without saying. I could almost remove these days, although when we started this pre-COVID, not everybody was doing online. A lot of people like the traditional go to class and sit in a chair for a week. But this is mostly about convenience. So all of this is on demand. Occasionally we'll do a live session, but that's recorded. And the reason we don't do those regularly anymore, because nobody shows up. I mean, there are about 400 to 500 CPWA candidates in the program right now. And if I did a live session in 2 weeks, I bet 7 or 12 would show up. So everything's on demand because you guys have clearly told us through the years, you want to do this whenever you want to do it and wherever you want to do it. So you can download, copy, save, and print all of this. It's open for you. Just don't share it with anybody. So as long as we don't start seeing this out on the websites and knowing that it's being passed around the firms, we're going to be okay with this. So you can download, copy, save, print, so you can study whenever you want, wherever you want. For example, the lectures, there's about 32 hours of lectures, not even counting test prep. So you may want to download those, convert those to an MP3 from an MP4 and listen on the train or on your commute or whatever. So that's all totally cool with us. Just don't share it with anybody and we're good to go. So convenience is really what we're going for here. We know you're busy and we know that you need to fit this into a very busy schedule. So we don't want it to be synchronous. We don't want to require you to come every Tuesday or Thursday night, turn in your homework or whatever on a regimented basis. No, you're going to move through as fast or slow as you want to or can. All right, study time. This is a big one. I kind of dropped the anchor earlier and said 100 to 200 hours. I think that for most, when I say most, I'm going to say 2/3 to 3/4 of you, I think easily are going to fit into this 100 to 200 hours of total time. That being said, we definitely have people that take more and less. We have fewer, but we do have people that clearly spend less than 50 hours. 14 days is the record. I'm not intentionally meaning to challenge you, but I know some of you are competitive. The point is, if you've already got a fair amount of experience and can put in the time, you could finish this in less than a month. But many of you, there's no way you could do that. 200 hours is even a stretch. You may take 400 or 500 hours because you're newer to this business. You don't have the foundation. All you've ever done is the Series 7 and 63, and you don't do financial planning on a regular basis. So you just need to know that there are tails. They're not super fat, but they're noticeable. So if you have a unique experience and you're wondering where you might fit, again, a reason to reach out to me by email. We'll schedule a short phone call and I can kind of walk you through and maybe help you make your best guess on how many hours. So look, really 5-6 months, once you're studying 10 hours a week, should be less than that, but I know there are interruptions along the way. That's what it's planned to be built for. And most people get through in that way once they get started, log in and start working through the course first. That's kind of how it plays out for most people. But yeah, clearly it's going to depend on your knowledge, current knowledge, your technical ability, study habits. That's a big one, right? test taking skills, etc. But again, I think maybe most importantly, you're going to be able to get through this as fast as you want and can or able. And again, I didn't want to put you in cohorts to where we said, okay, well, you're going to go through in 3 months or 6 months or whatever, because some people will like to fast track it, but fast trackers stress out the people who want to go slower or need to move slower, don't need that stress. And the people who want to move slower or need to move slower are just really going to frustrate the fast trackers. So we don't need any of that. You're going to go through at your own pace. We give you study schedules and even time templates, if you will, for the test prep, like 1, 2, or 3 months. You don't have to use those, but I definitely want to, even by the hour per section, show you if you just need a place to start and start working through and building your schedule, start with one of these tracks and then make your adjustments as you go. But again, up to you on how fast or slow you want to go. All right, $72.95 is the IWI set price, which includes the Yale course and test prep materials. You will not need anything else in choosing the Yale program. We include test prep materials for you. I don't think the other options do. I think you have to pay extra for that, or at least you used to. You might want to check IWI's website for that. But if you choose Yale, it's all included in that $72.95. And again, that's kind of the highest price. If you get any scholarships, that would knock that down. So again, spend 10 or 15 minutes filling out their scholarship application, wait a week or two and see if you get anything. I think that's worth your time. Ongoing registration. Another thing, I didn't want it to be synchronous and I didn't want to have official start dates. Some of you are getting ready to go into heavy tax season. You're in financial planning firms, even accounting firms where you do compilation and or planning, and it's just heavy, maybe heavy planning now, going to be heavy reporting and compilations in a month or two. Now is probably not the time to start unless you need to get your expense categorized for 2023. That's a different thing. But so I think timing is important when you can look out over the next 2 or 3 months and go, that doesn't look anywhere. It's all busy. It's all hectic, but those next 2 or 3 months don't look any busier than normal. So I'm ready to go in. Or certainly if you looked out over 2 or 3 months, although it's just hard to imagine, and you went, hey, my schedule looks pretty light. If that's the case, then yeah, that would be a good time to get going. But I think the point is flipping that around. There are times when it's probably not best for you to start. When you look out over the next couple of months and go, I'm not even sure how much studying I'd get done because it's going to be really, really busy. Then you may want to punt and just kind of wait and come back in a couple of months, see what your schedule looks like, and then jump in. All right, so you've got access with that $72.95, that again, including the Yale course and test prep. You've got access to our material for 1 year, 365 days. If you need to buy additional access, you can. I think the price right now is $2,250 for an extra year. There's no prorating on that. You just pay for a whole extra year. That being said, since 6 months on the outside is really as much as most people should need once they get started, we've given you twice that. And we did that on purpose. That's why it's a year, because it shouldn't take you really any more than half a year. But here's the cool thing, because it's all downloadable, you could just pass the course, which I'll show you in a minute, and then just download all the test prep. Again, don't share it with anybody, and then study off your own hard drive for the certification exam. So even if you got behind or in a corner or whatever, and you're like 11 months in and you're like, I can't finish now, that's okay. Just pass the course. I'll tell you how to do that. And then just download all the test prep, study on your own hard drive with all of our great test prep material, and then take the test when you're ready. And then you don't need to pay $2,000+ for additional access. So for those of you who are budget minded, or your boss or company is not reimbursing you for all of this, then that would be your strategy.
Jim?
Yeah.
I have 2 questions here for you, and I'm going to share both of them with you because I'm afraid, dear audience, that I need to scoot. I need to leave early. Jim will continue on delivering his fantastic presentation and answering all of your questions. So Jim, let me share with you these 2 questions and then I'll take my leave. The first is we have one webinar attendee who is planning on using an iPad and an accompanying pen to save and mark up documents. And they want to know if that's an easy enough tool and technology to use to take this course?
Yeah, good question. Yes, on the iPad, you shouldn't have much. I'm assuming your operating system is all updated, which probably is. Shouldn't have any issue there. On phones, however, it's real hit or miss. A lot of different phones, a lot of operating systems for those phones. And my experiences with Canvas, 50-50 on whether you'll be able to do a whole lot the way you want to on your phone. But iPad shouldn't be a problem. Great question, though.
Thank you, Jim. And the second question is more actual need for justification and proof of the value of the CPWA certificate. We have a webinar attendee who is saying that their firm is willing to pay for a CFP, but the firm is not convinced of the value of the other certificate. So they're looking for additional evidence to provide to their employers to convince them to subsidize the cost of the program.
Yeah, excellent. And I would imagine there may be more than one of you out there in that same boat. So one, I would hope, even if they haven't heard of or much of CPWA, because it's only been around 15 years or something, I'm pretty sure they've heard of Yale. So that ought to help in hopefully a significant way. That being said, I think that's precisely why IWI commissioned third-party reports and research as much as 10 years ago, and they still do them today, because people trust Cerulli, et cetera. So you want to go to their website. I think it's at the bottom. If you look at the CPWA, there's a drop down of 12 things or something. It's down near the bottom, and look for resources, and then go in there and look at some of those white papers. And if you can't find it, just reach out to me by email and I'll show you where it is, show you what I've got as well. But there is plenty of information out there to suggest pretty strongly in my mind that the technical skills are worth it. The image within the industry is growing, but your client should receive it well too. But it's always better if any of us can just point to a reputable research company and show them their data. And that's what they've got on their website. So it should be a great resource for you.
Thank you, Jim. Jim, you've mentioned a couple times to email you, and same thing goes with me. I know on Jim's final slide, everyone, he will show our email addresses, and our email addresses will also be in the post-webinar email you'll receive after this webinar. So thank you for letting me crash your webinar and introduce Jim. I hope everyone has a great day. So carry on all. Thank you so much.
All right. Thanks, Kristen. Okay, so yeah, you can send the emails to me at jim.dobbs@yale.edu, jim.dobbs, D-O-B-B-S, @yale.edu, or jim@dobbseducation.com. And yeah, those will be on the last slide as well. Speaking of slides, we're going to send you the slides and the replay of this. We'll post this actually to the program homepage that you've probably already visited. Probably next week, send you the slides and the recording link as well, in case you want to go over some of this. And these links in here, like reported by IWI, the pass rates, these are hot. So you can get a copy of that and then just drill down through these different resources I've shown you. So as you've stared at for the last couple of minutes, yeah, pass rates for the Yale candidates are pretty high. The caveat to this is subsequent attempts. As you'll see on their website, man, it goes down. Even for Yale candidates, it goes down by quite a bit. It's 50% or less for retakes. So my point to you now is, I'm kind of assuming that some of you are going to come into the program. Follow our plan, follow the guidance, not just to get through the education course, but the test prep. If you do and put in the time, trust the process, you're probably going to be in that 80 to 90% range in terms of passing on your first attempt. Don't try to do it yourself. Don't try to do your own thing. Don't try to shortcut. You just don't want to fall into that. I failed the first time, because now going forward, you're going to have about a flip of the coin chance of passing. We don't want you in that boat. Just follow the plan. You should be fine. And you'll see a lot in the discussion board, very lively discussion board in this particular course at Yale. All the things about do this, don't do that. I reinforce what Jim says in this video, blah, blah, blah. So all those resources are there for you. Okay, let's talk about the course real fast. Then we'll talk about the test prep, because test prep is very important in a program like this. We use Canvas, as I mentioned. We use Wolters Kluwer, which is one of their products is CCH, which some of you know, like RIA. A lot of that is tax. It's tax, retirement planning, estate planning, charitable planning, those kinds of things. And so we've got a library for you. It's not a core part of the curriculum. It's a library. It's a resource bank for you. Most of your learning is going to take place through video lessons, again, about 32 hours at the course side. And then you're going to take tests after different sections, after the 11 major content sections. And that should take you about 40 hours. You can certainly get through it faster. Like if you get into a video, this is one of the cool things about on-demand and video. You get into a section and you're like, this section, these two sections, these are my thing. This is already my specialty. We'll just speed up the video to 1.5 times or 1 1/4 or whatever, and just get through it faster until you hit an area or a subtopic where you're just not quite as sharp and you need a review. So a lot of tools in there to help you speed up or slow down in that regard, but 40 hours, give or take, is what I recommend to get through the course. You don't want to like fast track that too much, because that's where a lot of your core learning is going to take place. That way we would get into all the details of the next slide. It's like, okay, that's coming to you now with a good framework and good perspective. But if you don't watch the 30 hours of lecture video where they're actually explaining these complex strategies, then when you get to test prep, you're going to be like, what? I don't understand this slide and these 3 practice questions. Where's all the meat? The meat is back in the course. So you're going to want to spend that 35, 40 hours in the course to get that foundation solid before you get into the details of test prep. And again, you're going to use the readings library broken down by section and topic to study areas where you're like, okay, that video was fascinating, but man, Kisses was kind of going fast and I didn't get all of it. And there were a couple of things I wrote down. I want to go into the library to learn more about this. Sometimes the deepest learning takes place in the readings, but people aren't big readers anymore. So it's there for you. It's very painstaking. It's very costly for us to put that together every year. But I realize that in some areas, probably everybody is going to want to get into the library at times to deepen their knowledge or fill in knowledge gaps, if you want to call it that. So once you've completed the course requirements, that's past those 11 section tests, then you're going to get your certificate from Yale, completely separate from your certification exam and certificate. You'll get your Yale certificate, and then we're going to tell IWI, hey, Jim has just passed the Yale course. He's now eligible to schedule his exam. They're going to send you confirmation. And then we've got instructions for you on what to do, including don't click on any links in that email, because that opens your 120-day or 90-day testing window, as the case may be. And so we've got instructions on when, go ahead and finish the course, even if you think you're going to need more than 90 or 120 days, but just don't activate any of those test prep links or test provider links, which starts your timing. But again, that's all explained to you in the course. And then the test prep material at Yale then populates for you. And then it's all different material than you had at the course. Now, obviously, there's overlapping content in that regard, but the tools, the resources are different. So we're going to have videos from me going through the 11 sections. There's about 6 or 7 hours of that, where I'm going through almost now 1,000 test prep slides. Think of them as like summaries on key content, key applications in each of the 11 sections. Also telling you in the last year, look, they have heavily tested on these next 3 slides. You need to know this, because I think it's very likely you're going to see this on your exam in one way or another. See these next 2 slides? It's like either way. I mean, they do test on it, but not super heavy. So go ahead and make sure you understand this too. And see these next 3 slides? They almost never test on this. So just skim over this, take a quick look, and then move on. You're probably not going to be tested. So that's the way that we help you just narrow this mountain of content, 500 topics, easily over 1,000 topics when you include subtopics for, 140 question exam. So you need a way to be efficient. And that's my videos are going to help you do that. So you're going to go through those summary slides with me on the video, making your notes, what have you. And then you're going to take test prep practice questions, if you will. We've got about 7 mock exams worth of questions. But in the old days, when we had multiple mock exams, hardly anybody did other than the first mock exam. So don't want that. If I've got a question in this program anywhere, it's important. There's a reason it's in there. So what I did was, I couldn't figure out how to make people take the mock exams. So I went ahead and took all the questions out of all but the one mock exam and then put those in by section. So you're going to have all these practice questions going through with summaries and explanations, why this is right, why this is not. Here's the tax code section, etc. as you move through that. So that's the way you're going to get through this test prep material. And again, as I mentioned earlier, give you 30, 60, and 90-day schedules in case you want something to start with. Maybe you start, if you don't know, maybe start with 60 days and then just speed up if it's going well for you, or slow it down if it's going a little slower for you. All right, so hopefully that helps with what the test prep is all about. Again, videos from me reviewing slide summaries, talking about what is and what's not tested, what could be tricky here or there. And then you've got all the practice questions. And if that's not enough, at the very end, you've got one final mock exam, just kind of bring it all home. So that's the process. And again, with 89% pass rates from Yale candidates, I don't know why you would not want to go with the process. We've just crossed 2,000 candidates last week. So we've done this a lot for several years. I think you just want to kind of go with the plan. All right, here's what the exam looks like. I said 140, that's SEMA. CPWA is 135. 10 of those are non-scored beta items. A whole lot more information in our program regarding all of this. You do have 4 hours. You can take it at home now through ProctorU or Pearson VUE. If you want to go in person, we prefer you do that. We meaning Yale, because we see better results, and IWI see better results for people who go into a location. There are some reasons for that. We've got that in our test prep material as well. Calculator policy, don't need to spend a lot of time on that. You will need a financial calculator. I don't think personally there's more than about a handful, like 5 questions that you need a financial calculator to answer on this exam, no matter which questions you get. But you know, I definitely think you need to have one. You don't want to just have to randomly guess on those. tvmcalcs.com is a free website by a professor out in Colorado, I think it is. It's a great website. He has about 12 different really popular calculators. The 2 I've got highlighted are the most popular for this program at Yale for the CPWA certification. Either one of those is totally fine. And then if you're new to a calculator or need to go get one, then just spend 30 minutes to an hour going through his website, where he gives you 10 or 12 really good examples of some of the more commonly asked questions, not on the test, but in financial planning, personal finance. The point there is you want to get really familiar with the keystrokes on your calculator. The last thing you want to do is waste 10 minutes on a test like this because you're just fumbling around the order of the inputs in your calculator. So just spend 30 minutes, an hour, getting comfortable with your calculator. You should be fine. All right, so where's my help? Look, this is a self-study course. It's meant to be self-contained and autonomous, but there is help along the way. Now, it's not priced as part of a degree program or for academic credit, because it is not. So there's only so much help. That being said, having done this from literally the very first exam ever given for CPWA candidates, I kind of know where some more of the challenges are, especially regarding the exam. So I can certainly get ahead of those with best practices tips and videos and extra questions in those areas. That will help you in that regard. Canvas, Yale, and Dobbs all have people on staff to help you. At Yale and Dobbs, like if you're like, what's the URL? I forgot my password. We're there from 8 to 5 Eastern, Monday through Friday, but Canvas is there 24/7. So like if you're up late on a Friday night and your videos don't look right, you can reach out to Canvas because it's 24/7. And it's probably because you're on a different connection, a different laptop or desktop or whatever with a different OS, that kind of thing. But they're there 24/7 to help you. The discussion boards are great. You can form study groups if you want. We don't give your information to the other candidates or students, but you can share that if you want. We certainly see that on occasion. Somebody reaching out and saying, I'd love to do a study group from 6 to 8 Eastern on Thursday nights or whatever. So go for it. The discussion board's cool because you get to ask questions in there. Now, it will count towards your limit of 12 questions if a faculty member answers it, but we usually give other students a couple of days to answer each other's questions before we jump in there. But we leave the questions in there that are most common and I think are most helpful even for the last couple of years. So it's kind of an FAQ. So you're in, remember all the trusts I talked about? If that's not your thing, or you're really going to have to study that up to get sound in that area. So when you're in the estate planning section and you're struggling with this trust or that trust, just the first thing I would do, other than like watch that part of the video again, or review the slides summaries again, is I'd go into the discussion board, into that section, and just do a quick Control F search on my keyboard in that discussion and see if anybody else has been asking about that. If I thought it was a good discussion, I've left it up, even for the last couple of years. So that's really 3 years worth of content now in that regard. So I think that's a real good tool for you as well. But yeah, you do have help from faculty. Right now, Ross and I answer y'all's questions individually, but we have to have some limit. We did this as a beta for a while. 12 questions is fine. Only about 2.5% of students in this particular program ask 12 questions, and most don't even get close to their 12 questions. So it probably won't happen. That being said, if there are any of you that are, yeah, but that's not really my preferred method of learning. I like to reach out anytime I've got questions and just get those questions answered by an expert. And that's what I want. Well, this will not be a good fit for you because we're just not built that way. We're not priced that way. No program offers that. I'm pretty sure we offer the most help in that regard, but I feel confident with that 12 questions, given that we have so few people even ask their 12 questions. With all those other resources you have, most of you are not going to need to ask that many. But if that's really important to you, then yeah, you can stop here. This is probably not going to be a great fit, or just reach out to me and we can talk it through by phone. If you have questions on study plan, strategy, am I studying the right thing, Jim? You know, I'm kind of weak in this area or that area. You get no limit to those. So Ross and I will talk to you by phone or Zoom, as the case may be, and just kind of make sure you have a good plan and you feel good about your plan. I think that's really important. So then the only thing you're really worried about is just the content, and there's enough content that needs to be your focus. All right, great faculty. For sake of time, I'm going to let you look on the website. We've got Michael Kitsis, Toby Moskowitz I've been working with for almost 20 years now, not just in this program, but another number of other programs that I've worked with Toby on. John Ursesi and Richard Joyner, some real legends, if you will, in our business. Survey results, lots of this, both quantitative and qualitative, on the website as well. I'll let you look through that on your own. Very important to me, though, in terms of efficacy. And then the whole time we've just been trying to help you figure out if this program's right for you in terms of flexibility, if that's really important. Customize your own learning, like you gravitate more to the videos versus the questions. You're going to need to do them all. But in terms of going through something 2 or 3 times, you're going to gravitate towards the way that you receive information the best. Certainly we have, I think, the most comprehensive coverage out there, but you do need this motivation and self-discipline. We're going to send you out weekly reminders and monthly emails, and that's going to help, but you still got to do the work. So since I can't be there, none of us can be there to make you do it. You're going to have that discipline to be able to pull this off, even though we give you all the guardrails and best practices to get where you want to go. And then, you know, a challenge. It's going to be a challenge, even for an experienced advisor. This content is deep, it's hard, it's technical. But again, this is what differentiates you from your peers. Your peers don't want to do this, some of them. They don't want to put in the time. They don't want to give up 100 or 200 hours to earn this certification and build their skill set. But if you do, and you want to join Yale, we'd love to have you come join us if this is the right program. You're going to actually register or apply for candidacy through IWI's website. As I said before, there's a link on our website, or you can just go straight to the Institute's website to do that. And then here's some contact information. We do have a little bit of time, a couple of minutes for Q&A, and then I'll stay after at the top of the hour as well. I didn't put Kristen's information in here. I went ahead and put Kelly's for questions about logistics and administration of the program. I think Kelly's probably the better person. And again, feel free to shoot me an email for any questions that you have. So that's it. Hopefully that was helpful. I know that was a lot, but I know it's a big decision for many of you. So I really wanted to be in depth and comprehensive the best I could in an hour. But let's just go ahead and look at some of these questions here. Okay, already did that one. Got that. Okay, let's go over here. Okay, and I think we've only got one more. So if any of you have questions, now would be your last opportunity to go ahead and put those in. After taking all the exams, do you see a typical client threshold for this designation? Oh, okay, so like what is high net worth? And then you've got in here max. Good question, thanks. 5 to 15 million. Yeah, I think that's pretty darn close. The original committee that I was on when we created this, we said 5 to 25 million. But we put the caveat in there. It's not specific to that. It's certainly going to help you with your 20, 30, $50 million client. Now, it's not a family office specific program. So if you have clients who need to make the decision, buy or rent the plane, we're not going to go into that. Or, do we keep the pilots on staff or do we just lease the pilots? We're not going to get into that. But 5 to 25 million up to 50 million, that's the space. Deca millionaires, let's just call it that. That doesn't mean it won't help you with your $2 million client. Of course it will. It's just we're going to go deeper in those areas and challenges of your Deca millionaire client. Great question. And then Dave thinks, if we end up passing the exam, what are the ongoing fees and required CE? That's a great question. I even forget because they change it all the time. CFP board even changes it on us, and I hold other designations as well, and they change those things too. But I want to say about $500 is the cheapest on a yearly basis. So that'd be about $1,000, maybe a little less over 2 years. Check IWI's website at the very bottom of the dropdown for CPWA. They actually have what do I have to do to keep my certification. So they've got it in there. And the reason I hesitate and pause a little is they've got membership option as well. Which can drive that price up. Membership is optional for all of us, myself included. You have to pay a certain amount just to keep using the certification marks. And then membership buys you a whole bunch of cool stuff if you want to pay up. So you want to go there to the website, certainly comparable to other certifications at this level. 40 hours of CE every 2 years is your requirement. Cool thing is it's not loose, but it's pretty generous in terms of where you can get that CE. Now they have incentives, as you can imagine, to get their CE, but you don't have to. So for me, for example, I've got several certifications. I'm able to double, triple, quadruple dip on most of it. So like with CFP, if you guys have that, that's 30 hours every 2 years. So just with my 3, SEMA, CPWA, CFP, I can do 40, 45 hours and knock out all 3 certifications over a 2-year period of time. The caveat or the exception to that is CFP board requires their 2 hours of ethics to be in their CFP ethics code. So you're going to have to do special ethics CE for CFP board. IWI does not have that criteria. So I just do my CFP CE and that counts for SEMA and CPWA. Anyway, enough details there, but 40 hours every 2 years is what your CE requirement is going to be. Good question. All right, so those are the only questions I see, but we're about 2 or 3 minutes over. But if you've got any questions, I'll just wait half a minute here or so just to see if you've got any. Good questions. All right, you're welcome, Dave. All right, so that's it. So again, the offer stands. Just shoot me an email if you want the color-coded curriculum PDF. I'll send you the candidate handbook as well. And then if you have any questions that are more specific to your situation, happy to tackle those through email or set up a short phone call. All right, guys, thanks a lot. Thanks for hanging in there for 1 hour and 3 minutes. And I wish you all the best. Happy holidays. Bye-bye.